All right. Hi, everyone. How are we today?
Good.
Hey, how are you?
Good. All right. Well, I guess this week we are talking about working with multidisciplinary teams. There's a few questions that we have to answer. So I can read the questions and then we can kind of like have a conversation from there if that works for everybody.
Mhm.
Cool. All right. So the first question is, what are the benefits and challenges of utilizing multidisciplinary teams in community mental health care?
So I'll go first. My sister's actually in a PHP right now that's doing community healthcare, and they have a multidisciplinary team where they have, I think, around 7 or 8 therapists around, and she's there for around like 9 hours a day. So she gets kind of like to speak with each one, and of course, there's the main therapist as well. And when I spoke to the director and the CEO of the place, her biggest rave about having multidisciplinary is that she doesn't need to. Uh, she feels like she doesn't need to refer anyone out because she has everything available underneath her. So when she evaluates the situation or condition of the person, she kind of knows which direction the client might need, and she sends them that way. And she finds that very beneficiary. And I think my sister also enjoys it because she gets to get multiple perspectives, and she's always tuned into, they're always moving with her instead of trying to box her into one specific discipline.
That was a really good way to say it. I like how you said they moved with her. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, I
me
really
too.
like that wording. That was like very, like appreciative to not just the client, but also like the professional she's working with.
Yeah.
And I feel like having like multiple like skill sets too is probably super beneficial, like, well, to your sister, but to anyone that's working with like a team like that, because why, like, if you need help with something, there might be somebody on the team that like knows the answer, and you can just be like, hey, like, I'm
Yeah.
struggling with this, like, can you use your expertise to help me?
hmm
Yeah,
And you don't have to
DBT would
guess.
be good for you, and they turn you to that therapist. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and Alex, you said like they don't have to guess. I was when I read this question, I was thinking about like strengths based because my goal is to be like a strengths based therapist. And I think that like knowing that other people can be experts in their own way and appreciating that and bringing that in to be collaborative is so important. Not just for like clients because like for your sister's dad, like that's probably great that they have so many people that can help with so many different areas, but also like as a therapist, you don't want to be the expert at everything. Like you want to be the expert in your own space and you want to know other people who are the expert in their own space so that you can bounce back and forth and have different perspectives.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool.
The
Yeah, I think it's,
residential, go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
The residential place that I worked at for my last job was an eating disorder facility, and so we had dietitians there. And so there was a couple patients that came in that were in high school, and so they were allowed to have teachers come in on the weekends. And especially with eating disorders because it's such psychological, but also health and like physical health. We had like doctors that would come in. We had psychiatrists, physicians, dietitians, always coming through, and some people even were there like full time, and it was so much easier to be able to walk down the hall and talk to the doctor or the physician or the dietitian than having to call them and take hours to get a response. And it was just like you were saying, a very collaborative treatment center instead of, like you were saying, having to guess too, or make assumptions and for the sake of time or finances. It's also, yeah, the finances too makes it a lot easier if it's all in one package rather than having to pay and refer, and the time and money alone I feel like is a huge benefit.
Yeah.
I can also speak through, sorry, Destiny, do you have something to
No,
say?
I was just agreeing with what Alex was saying.
Okay. I can also speak through my experience because I believe that one of the benefits is to maximize the effectiveness of a treatment. For instance, I am a teacher and I have run several IEP meetings, which stand for individual educational plans. I think one of the articles talk about it. And at those meetings, one of the things that is discussed is the special services provided for an individual student or child to achieve certain goals.
For instance, if the goal is receptive language or speech development, there is a whole team in which includes, I don't know, a school psychologist, a speech specialist, a teacher, and other team members developing different strategies to support that child language development. And also, on the other hand, one of the challenges that when working with multidisciplinary teams is the issue of confidentiality, because in that meeting there is a lot of professionals where we have that they have access to the students' files, and in those folders includes a lot of personal information or from the parents, from the students. Yeah.
No, we're for time purposes. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Edna. Are
No,
you?
that's
I'm
it.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Okay. I just don't want us to go over too much, so I'm gonna move us on to the next question. So how might working, I feel like we kind of answered this in the first question, but how might working collaboratively in an agency that uses a multidisciplinary team structure impact confidentiality policies and thus the therapeutic relationship? I feel like Edna, you were just speaking to this, so if I want you to finish your thought because I feel like I interrupted you.
No, I think that was it, but also sometimes there are professionals, and I'm speaking through my experience in school settings, but sometimes there are professionals who had never seen or met a client, and yet they know too much information about them.
Mhm.
And this is based on the fact that they're helping in the developmental goals, or they're helping in the plan to meet a objective of that student. And I think it can lead clients to feel intimidated or uncomfortable with that.
Like they go in and the person already knows more about them than they would have ever wanted to share, and they have no control over it.
Right.
Yeah, that would be uncomfortable. Like if I was in that position, I didn't know somebody and they just came in and knew all this stuff about me, I'd be like, hello, do I know you? Like, what? But yeah, do you feel, Edna, like that the people that you, just because you have experience with this, well, I think you said you did too, Alex, like that there's different like reporting laws, like that you have to like know about for each professional?
Do parents have to sign a document that they authorize us to discuss this information with program specialists by department, but it is sometimes uncomfortable when we have those meetings and parents and students are there, and those specialists that had never met before, they know everything about them, they know personal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And
Well,
the
and
thing
that's
that, oh, sorry, Becky.
sorry, no, I was just gonna say like, so like Edna, like your job, like we do work with IEPs in my office because we're a speech and occupational therapy office, and so we get called in for that stuff a lot. But see, the thing is, I'm admin, and I know all those things prior to anybody else, even before their therapist, because I get their reports, I get the authorization, I get the reason they were discharged or not given services prior. I get the name of their pediatrician, I get the name of their school, I get their parents' information, I get any history. If brother and sister have a diagnosis, I get all that information before they even enter my office. And I get it all, and I give it to the therapist before they even get to their therapist. And those are things that like are important, but like it is a lot to know that like, when parents come in, and then I usually act like I don't know those things because they don't ever want them to feel like I know so many things about you, right? But like that is part of like learning how to find the boundary, especially when it comes to HIPAA, of like not allowing yourself to become like, I know we joke that I like to know the tea, but I don't play around when it comes to HIPAA. Like I will never be a person who will violate that policy
Yeah.
at all.
When I was a behavior tech at the residential place, we had like an EMR where everything that the new clients or patients that were coming in would be in the EMR, and we would have to look at their profile essentially before they come in because we're not their therapists, we're just interacting with them to do basic things, and they live at the facility, so it's a lot just of downtime, and we have to read it before we go into the next shift. So it's the same. I'll meet clients and know everything about them, know their trauma, know their history, like everything. And it's one of the downsides, I think, to that is that there's assumptions made before you even meet them, which I guess that's not a confidentiality issue specifically, but then you have all these notions in your head, even subconsciously, before you meet them.
I have an OT at my job who tends to read those reports and then take on her assumptions of those kids. And we've had a couple kids that she ends up being like, I won't work with them. and we don't even know them. You
No,
just
it's
read a
terrible.
report.
It's
So,
sad.
yeah.
Yeah, so in the like since we're on the topic of confidentiality, like how do you guys feel like you can maintain confidentiality and trust in the therapeutic relationship when you're engaging like with collaboration with other people? Do you feel like, I don't know, like how would you guys manage that? I feel like for me it'd be like HIPAA compliant communication and like making sure that I'm, like Becky said, like not ever crossing
Yeah.
those
Yeah,
I
and
boundaries.
think
we're working with like multiple therapists too
Mhm.
in the community. I feel like the thing that I was going to mention with what Edna was saying is that the place my sister's at, they're informed that whatever she says, everyone will pretty much have an idea of, and it could come up in like sessions later on with different therapists. Like, hey, like you're saying this now, but you told, Jackie or whoever this thing the other day or whatever, or they bring up the topic that came up. So I'm obviously in a strategic way where it's not like, hey, you did this, but I feel like following your instincts and kind of making sure from the beginning that they're aware that these things could come up with other therapists is a way to have it covered for the rest. And then once the time comes that you do need to bring up information that was given to you by another therapist, that's when you have to tread the waters carefully. So you're not, freaking out the client with this information that they're like feeling secretive with or whatever the case may be.
Another way that I thought was really helpful with confidentiality, just really quick, is when at the facility we used initials on all like
Yes.
teams and like even
First
just
two,
talking about
last
them.
two.
Instead of doing like first and last name, we just did first initial, last initial. So it's a little bit more discreet. And if you're not like really knowing what's going on, you're not going to pick up and know who's being discussed.
Awesome. Well, I think that this discussion has been great.
Mhm.
Done a good
Me too.
job.
I like everyone's opinions, and I like that like all of you have had experience like with a multidisciplinary team.
Yeah.
So it's like for me like a lot of insight because I don't have all that experience. So I like learning from you guys.
I like learning from you guys.
I like learning from you guys.
All right, perfect. All right, well, I'll see y'all next time.
Yep.